There was a time when Rare was king of the 3D platformer collectathon. Even today, they're fondly remembered for their Banjo-Kazooie games, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and the utterly elephantine Donkey Kong 64 and the criminally underrated Star Fox Adventures. They were all pretty great, and sometimes Rare would experiment with genre mixing, resulting in some truly unconventional platformers that Nintendo would never dare to do. When Rare got bought up by Microsoft, everyone's imaginations ran wild with what kinds of new and awesome games they'd make unshackled by Nintendo's hardware limitations. Regrettably, Rare's output under Microsoft was tepid at best and continued to decline with every release. Titles like Grabbed by the Ghoulies and Cameo failed to impress. Their big ace in the hole was going to be a long-awaited third Banjo-Kazooie for the Xbox 360. Then Microsoft and Rare played a huge prank on the world, releasing Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Everyone laughed, but then it turned out it wasn't a joke. Eventually, key members left Rare and sought to crowdfund a spiritual successor to the kinds of Animal Buddy Duo 3D platformer collectathons that made gamers so giddy with joy. After raising $3.2 million, and 2 years later, Yooka-Laylee was released to tepid enthusiasm. Something wasn't quite right with the game. Between the myriad of camera issues, iffy controls, and subpar game design, Yooka-Laylee didn't feel like it was the Banjo successor it could be. Around 8 years later, the boys at Playtonic have cracked the code of where it went wrong. Does this mulligan finally deliver the Banjo 3 we never got? Find out in our Yooka-Replaylee review. The original Yooka-Laylee was deeply flawed, but you could still have a fun time with it with tempered expectations. It captured the essence of 90s 3D platformers with expansive worlds, quirky characters, and puzzle-solving gameplay, but with graphics that emulated CG pre-renders. Its main issues came down to playability, which felt floaty, and an unwieldy camera which often hindered players and always tried to get behind Yooka, as if it were a burly prison inmate. Come here. The differences between vanilla Yooka and Replaylee are evident the moment the game begins. The story is just presented more coherently, with better introductions to the characters and stakes. Yooka feels less like a generic do-gooder, and is more like a naive child who has no idea what he's gotten himself into. Laylee's characterization is the same as ever. She's still a snarky purple bat with a penchant for punishing puns. Replaylee has the same setup as the original release, where the duo must stop the villainous Corporate B, Capital B, who's scheming to digitize and hoard all the world's books using a massive vacuum. The main difference in the remake is that the one book's importance is emphasized, and its power to create worlds within its pages is elaborated, establishing higher stakes. The one book is more of a character now, and not just a plot device, though it still technically is. Capital B benefited even more in this revamp, a comically villainous, nightmarishly obese Corporate B who serves as the CEO of Ivory Towers, a satirical, greedy Microsoftian conglomerate. His relationship with his assistant, Dr. Quack, is further fleshed out, as the two are like a dysfunctional married couple, with Quack being more conniving and scheming than ever toward his oafish and boorish boss. Another key difference in the story is that Capital B manipulates the heroes into collecting the pages for him. The original game had 145 to collect, but Replaylee expands this to a whopping 300 in total. While some of the old ones are still acquired the same way, most of them require new objectives and gimmicks. The original game was big, and the remake is even bigger.
That's 'cause Jesus Christ is man.
With new areas and stuffed with mechanics. It's not on the same scale as Donkey Kong Bonanza, but it's still impressive and generous for a $30 game. Yooka and Laylee are granted all of their moves at the start. You don't need to buy them, and the game doesn't waste your time like that because there's just so much to see and do. The economy of quills and quids is directed at tonics, stat upgrades, and cheeky cosmetic outfits for the duo. It's fueling a collectathon loop, keeping gamers hooked, as if Playtonic is a dopamine dealer injecting it straight into their veins. The vanilla Yooka-Laylee didn't feel great to play, and it felt floaty and delayed, and the spin attack didn't feel like it connected. Having the same enemies everywhere was disappointing, and the quills were seemingly randomly just dropped all over the worlds with no thought. Replaylee overhauls everything and fine-tunes the gameplay, adding a palpable cartoony spring and crunch to how the duo interacts with the world. Animations have also been dramatically improved, with more care put into the sound design, which punctuates all the impact of whether Yooka is jumping or rolling or using Laylee to slap the broadside of a corplet sax seam. All worlds are fully built when entering them, and having all moves available fosters more exploration without feeling limited. While it does limit the use of pages to only opening the worlds, a part of me misses the feeling of a familiar setting expanding. The overall layout of the world is more or less the same, but with added gimmicks and some new nooks and crannies. There are new areas and some questionable challenges or puzzles that have been replaced with more intuitive concepts. You won't be reflecting light at an ice cube anymore, like in the isometric palace, and the few difficult challenges that remain can be skipped because there's more than double the amount of pages. Yooka-Replaylee is a much easier game to get through than the original, but that's okay because the lighthearted and easygoing cartoony ambiance should be reflected in breezy gameplay. With more pages to collect, most of them will be easier to collect. For the most part, there's some thought put into earning them. This isn't like Super Mario Odyssey where a majority of them are patronizing. Getting 120 pages to fight the final boss isn't a long or tedious task. Yooka-Laylee is dense with a variety of different challenges. The theming in each world is unique, keeping things fresh. The casino is especially distinct from other worlds for being somewhat accurate to a real casino layout, and because the duo has to collect tokens in exchange for pages, which changes the dynamic for challenges and exploration. The Vendy's tonics and trousers upgrades can make the game even easier. Some of the earliest tonics allow the heroes to kill corplets in one hit, and they already don't take fall damage or need air to survive underwater. The only punishment when dying is losing some change, which can be negated by equipping a tonic that's available at the start. The original Yooka-Laylee wasn't an ugly game by any means, but you could tell it was made during the early days of Unity. Yooka-Laylee looks incredible, even on Nintendo Switch 2. The draw distance is far, and corplets have different designs depending on what level they live in. The visual style evokes classic 90s CG pre-renders, and the jaunty music is redone to be easier on the ears. Everything just feels right in Yooka-Laylee. It makes the vanilla game look like a rough draft, and like this was the game they intended to make the first time. It took a long time, but it's finally here. This is the Banjo 3E fans have been hoping for.